Get started. Randy and I, thank you. I'll call this Finance Committee meeting of the ORCAA Board to order. Good to see folks today. Let me take a peek at our agenda here. Any changes or additions to the agenda required?
One thing that I'd like to provide the committee with a brief update on our federal and state core grant situation. After we talk about the fiscal year 2026 first quarter update, I can provide that brief update if that works for the committee.
We'll add the update to number 2 under new items. Morning, Jim. Just getting started here. Mike will be joining us a few minutes late. Okay, well, with that addition to the agenda, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Mr. Chair, move we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, great. And maybe, it's a regular meeting, so we can do a quick round of introductions before we go around. I see Emily's joined us again. So you want to start in the room, Jeff, and go through the staff that have joined us?
Sure, absolutely. So in the room here, we've got Debbie Moody, Operations Manager, Tiffany Flores, Record Specialist, Public Records Officer, and taking minutes today. Tyson Justice, Financial Services Manager. I'm Jeff Johnston, Executive Director. And then online, we've got Dan Nelson running Zoom, and Chris Kraus, Agency's IT person, is also listening in.
Great. Good to have you guys. And online, we'll go around Jim, then Randy, then Emily. You want to say hi?
Hi there, Jim Cooper from the Olympia City Council.
Randy Neville in Mason County. Hi, Emily.
Hey, Randy. Hey, Jim. Emily Klaus, Thurston County Commissioner.
Thanks for joining us today. And I'm Greg Brotherton, Jefferson County Commissioner and Vice Chair and a Chair of the Finance Committee. Maybe that's something else I want to talk about a little bit. Jeff and I had been talking about kind of the bylaws and our conventions and just where they align and where they diverge. So next up is the minutes from August 13th. Did folks have a chance to review those? Thank you, Tiffany. I thought they looked great.
Yeah.
Move approval.
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from August 13th as presented. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right. That is unanimous. So Tyson, you want to take us through the first quarter of fiscal year 2026?
Be happy to. But first, we're going to start with Jeff. He has a brief introduction here.
So I just wanted to say, well, I just wanted to let the committee know that Tyson was actually out for 3 weeks on jury duty. So Monday was his first day back in the office after, again, being out for 3 weeks. And Tyson but he got done what needed to get done. Obviously, there was payroll, there was some other things some accounts payable, some other stuff that had to get done during that time. And Tyson came in the evenings, on weekends, to make sure that stuff got done. The report that you all have was stuff that Tyson did while on jury duty. So Debbie could get it out last week. So just wanted to acknowledge the hard work that Tyson has put in over the past few weeks. And we are so happy to have him back in the building and full-time working with us on ORCAA duties. So thank you, Tyson.
No problem. I felt like I had 2 jobs there for 3 weeks, so I'm glad to be back as well.
Welcome back.
And
if you want to give us a little update on the trial, a 3-week trial is usually pretty interesting. I don't know, but
it was pretty interesting. Like I said, I told staff it was pretty interesting to see our judicial process in action. I've never served on a jury before, so there was quite a bit of responsibility. Given that it was a 3-week trial, you had to really pay attention every day, make sure that you're taking notes of all the facts. But yeah, it was pretty interesting. Boring at times though, for sure. At one point the lawyers were arguing about Excel spreadsheets. So yeah.
Feel at home. I don't know. You didn't like that?
Yeah.
That was my comment to Tyson's, like right up his alley.
Yep. All right, moving on to our Q1 financial statements.
Dan, do
Hopefully,
you want to share the documents, Dan, as he's going through?
oh, yes. You could do that, Dan. Be great.
Thank you.
If you could just scroll down to the actual financial statements. Thanks, Dan.
If you can make it a little bit bigger.
Yeah, can you make it, there you go.
Yeah.
Perfect. So hopefully you guys have had a chance to take a look at the financial statements. In summary, to begin the beginning of the fiscal year, I think we're starting off really strong. We had a net gain to our overall fund balance of $104,000, which is pretty good. So year over year, our revenue is up by $14,000, while our expenditures are up roughly $195,000, which is quite a big jump. But those are planned expenditures that we are going to be making in fiscal year 26. So I think really, if you go down the financial statements and you look at the revenue first, our increase in revenue is attributable to penalties and annual registration revenue, which is exceeded our annual operating budget by 26%. So that's been pretty big for us. And again, penalties is a revenue line item, which is hard to predict. So we can't really say how much that is going to will be for a given fiscal year. So that's a very variable revenue line item there. Moving on to the core and wood stove education, we did not receive.
Sorry,
any
can you
revenue.
pause for 1 second, Tyson?
Sure.
Just for, maybe really for Emily's benefit, maybe this is something that we've talked about a lot before, the unpredictability of penalty revenue. And I don't know, Jeff, this might be a good time just to kind of go, we've had large penalties in the past, like multi-million-dollar penalties, and we've often wrestled in this committee with what to do. And I guess I just want to flag it briefly. I don't know, Jeff, do you want to just speak to kind of where we've landed and speak to this? This looks like it's a series of smaller penalties, not the same windfall of one giant penalty, but can you speak to it a moment?
Sure. Yeah. When I saw this number, I asked Debbie to run kind of why is this number so large after just 1 quarter? And it is, we've had a number of our sources, our stationary sources that have been out of compliance with their permits. And so we've issued, again, as you said, Greg, not the large penalty that we had a number of fiscal years ago, but still relatively large penalties that have added up to the number that you see in this document. And again, it is not something that we can really forecast. Of course, our goal is to have zero penalty money, because that means that either our sources or folks are out of compliance, because that's when we issue notices of violation and assess penalties. And it does seem to kind of ebb and flow. We were talking about that a little bit the other day with compliance staff, and facilities will stay in compliance for a period of time. Then there could be a transition maybe among their environmental manager, and so bring somebody new on and they go out of compliance. And again, we do a lot of technical assistance with these companies to ensure that they're in compliance, that they understand the conditions of their permit. But when they don't follow their permit, one of the outcomes of that is often a notice of violation, which has an assessed penalty. So we have had some discussions amongst this committee about, how is this penalty money used? This committee and the board is very thoughtful about our budget and how this money is used. I don't know. Was there more, Greg? Is that enough kind of context?
I mean, I see Randy's unmuted too. So maybe I guess the one other thing I wanted to talk about was just, we've batted this back and forth. I don't think we've actually changed policy very much, but as you say, it's a question with these larger penalties of what bucket to go to. Does it just go straight into fund balance in the general fund,
Right.
or Randy's often advocated for setting those penalties aside more like a rainy day? You want to talk, and we haven't done this yet, but just it's kind of the item that we talk about a lot. So Randy, go ahead. You want to say your piece
Yeah.
quickly?
Yeah, for Emily for the most part, right? Because she's coming onto this committee and
Yeah.
gonna be the vice chair. Okay. So Emily, just to share with you, I've been an advocate for a long time that we don't make the mistake of scheduling our functions off of these penalties. One, I don't believe in using penalties to function your business off of, because then you start creating situations which we have not. This committee has been exceptional at not using it as a weapon to generate funds. It just so happened it generated funds the last few years, especially. But I want to tell you that even the one that had the huge fine, what was it, last year, the year before, they called me knowing how I am about it and actually told me it was not our people, it was them, pretty much on purpose. Is what they were saying, to overcome the things they needed to do to make it all function, but that our staff was exceptional and was not penalizing them. Actually, it was before Jeff, wasn't it, when it first came in? But it was huge. But our staff is really good about that. With that being said, I want them to continue to be so. So I always advocate for those monies being separated out so that we could use them for one-time expenditures and not actually try to run our organization based on those fees, and those fees that we hope will come in. Because if you need it eventually, you have to drain another line of blood to get it, and I don't want that. That's why I've always advocated for separating that out.
Thanks for that, Randy. Sorry to interrupt you, Tyson. I just
No
brief
worries.
history tangent. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, so moving back up to the grant section of the revenue, we didn't receive any funding for core or wood stove education and enforcement. That's because we exhausted funding last fiscal year. We recently enacted a new wood stove education and enforcement grant for this fiscal year.
Actually, it's the reduction in recycle award, right?
No. So, well, as Jeff was saying, you'll see that we did receive some revenue for the wood smoke reduction and recycle, and that was from the previous fiscal year. But if you look at the wood stove education enforcement, there was zero revenue received for the first quarter of 2026, because we had exhausted the funding prior to the last quarter of last fiscal year. And overall, I think we're within our budget utilization threshold benchmark of 25%. We for the first quarter, we've collected 37% of our overall budget, which is okay. I would be more concerned if we were below 25%. But given that we're above 25%, that's okay, because some of the revenue that we do receive is front loaded. For example, if you look at the annual registration, that is a revenue line item that's generally front loaded at the beginning of the fiscal year. You can see that we have a 95% collection rate on that. So for expenditures, we do have, like I said, we have made some rather large
I'm sorry,
expenditures.
Tyson, can I ask one question
Sure.
before you
Yeah.
go? Can you go back up, Dan? Did you talk about this? Why am I not remembering of these ecology grants? What happened in fiscal year 25 that we only ended up getting
So,
13% of it?
so for the one I was speaking about was the wood stove education and enforcement. It's
Right.
a two-year grant.
I wasn't talking about that one. I'm sorry. I'm talking about the core grants.
The core
top.
grant, yeah, so the core grant, we did run out of funding for that. And we received the final reimbursement. I believe it was the final quarter of last fiscal year, so Q4 of 2025. So generally, you would submit the final quarter at the end of the fiscal year, and then you would get reimbursed during the first quarter of the new fiscal year. But we had already received the final chunk of money for the core funding. And then Jeff will speak on that a little bit more later on in the meeting. We are working with the state about getting a new grant in place for the core funding for both the state and the federal funding. We've had a little bit of some back and forth with the state and especially issues with the federal government. We're not really sure what the overall funding for the core program will look like yet. But hopefully we're getting closer on some sort of answer from the state about what that funding will be overall for fiscal year 26 and 27.
Great, thank you for that.
Yeah, I'll address that a little bit more, but as Tyson said, it's not unusual to exhaust the core grant funds well before the end of the year, so.
So moving down to expenditures, I just want to touch on some of the large expenditures that we made during the first year of fiscal year 26. So some of the large expenditures that we incurred was the purchase of a new fleet vehicle, which is a line item under non-payroll, third from the bottom, vehicle purchase. And so you can see that we had budgeted 48,000. We spent 42,000, so we came in a little under budget there. We did make we were able to take advantage of a manufacturer rebate, which replicated the EV tax incentive of $7,500. So we scrambled to make the purchase so we could get that tax credit applied to the vehicle. So that helped us come in under budget there. So as part of the purchase of the new vehicle, we also installed a new EV charger and also installed a security cage around that EV charger. And if you've been to the office, you can go take a look at it. It's out back. It's pretty cool. We have 2 level 2 EV chargers. And right now, we're letting staff use one of the EV chargers. But Jeff's the only person with an EV car currently.
At this point, hoping to change that.
Yeah.
Hey, can I make a
we also-
reservation for our in person to top mine off?
Yes.
Yeah, if you come and check it out, absolutely.
Great.
You'll have to bring your converter. We don't have a Tesla. We don't have a Tesla adapter on our charger, so.
It's gonna be the standard, Jeff. You gotta get ready for the standard. I've got my adapter.
Okay.
Yeah, so the reason why we installed 2 EV chargers is I think later on, we're probably going to expand our fleet vehicle with an additional EV car. So we're kind of future-proofing our charging capabilities here at the agency. We also installed a new security system which included new fire and alarm panels. So that was a rather large expense that needed to be made. Our panels are now in compliance with the fire and city regulations here. So that's good stuff. And so moving down into the program operations, we had 2 projects which incurred some large expenditures. One of the projects was relocating the Chica Peak site to Pahocus Peak. So that was not cheap, but Odell did a great job and she's relocated those monitoring sites to Pahocus Peak. And the other one was installing the new monitoring site at the Mountain View Elementary out in Lacey. So that is up and running now. So we're pretty proud that we were able to make that happen.
And we have been reimbursed by Department of
Yes,
Ecology for
we
that expense. Didn't show up in Q1 of the fiscal year, but it'll show up in the second quarter.
Yeah, we've actually been reimbursed for both the relocation of the Chica Peak monitoring site, which came out of the IRA grant. And then we are also reimbursed by Ecology for the Mountain View Elementary monitoring site. And so those 2 payments will show up in our Q2 financial statements because those were remitted back to us back in October. If you take a look at the expenditure budget utilization, we're sitting at 28%, which I think is pretty cool, given that we had pretty large expenditures in the first quarter of the fiscal year. So again, measuring against that 25% benchmark, I think we're really on target. And then also considering that we had an overall net gain of $104,000 to our fund balance, I say we're sitting pretty good for the first quarter of fiscal year 26. Any questions?
No, it's invisible that you're on jury duty, Tyson. Good job.
Oh. So that's it. Jeff, do you want to talk a little bit about the core funding?
Sure. So just a reminder about, so what we call our core grant, there's a state component that ecology pays from the model toxics control account. And then there's a federal component that money originates with the EPA, but it passes through ecology, who then distributes it to the local clean air agencies. So because of the projected shortfall in the MOTCA accounts in July, ecology delayed writing the state core grant until after the September revenue forecast. And that again came out at the very end of September. Ecology notified me late in October, as well as the other locals, that due to the projected $20 million shortfall in that MOTCA account, that our core grants were being reduced by 65% for this biennium. So our amount is going from but basically just shy of $135,000 a year to just over $47,000 a year. So it's a pretty significant decrease, obviously, 65% decrease. And kind of adding to that, we still have no information from ecology about what's going on with our federal core grant. We did receive information from the EPA back at the end of June that there was going to be a small reduction to those totals. But since then, there's been essentially no information. And of course, with the federal government shut down and all of their contract staff furloughed, wasn't expecting any movement. But really don't know what's going on with our federal money. I know that the other three Region 10 states have their money. It's just a Washington issue. And this is part, so the money that ecology passes to the locals is part of a much larger grant called the Performance Partnership Grant that includes water funding, air, other things. So it's caught up there somewhere, but have really no information about what the delay is and when we might be getting those funds. And again, that total is a bit more than the state core grant, is closer to about $170,000 a year. So there is a meeting actually on Monday, an air directors meeting. Well, we actually on Friday afternoon, the local air directors are all getting together to talk about this. What does this mean? What are we doing? And so I'll know a little bit more after that meeting. And then we've got a meeting at ecology next Monday, where maybe we'll get more information from ecology about what the issues are and when the grant agreements are going to be signed and when we can start expecting some funding. But again, with Tyson out, he and I haven't had a chance to really talk this through. Again, so the state core grant is about 7.5% of ORCAA's total revenue. So it's not a huge amount, but again, the core grant is important because it pays for unfunded and underfunded things such as outdoor burning, such as monitoring. I mean, we get some money from EPA to cover our monitoring expenses, but not as much as we spend on monitoring. So we need to again be taking a close look at what does this mean, and I would propose that at the January Finance Committee, we have more of a discussion when we can look at we'll look at the second quarter update, or the second quarter update, and we'll talk a little bit more about what does this mean and where do we stand on these federal and state grants.
Thank you for that, Jeff. So yeah, talk about it more in January. And is my summation that follows accurate? A lot of buzz, a lot of administrative drain, and no answers at all.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
And a
Yes.
guaranteed reduction.
Yes,
And a
so, yeah,
guaranteed
so a guaranteed reduction in the state core grant of a 65% reduction. And we don't know what the status is of the federal funds. And again, it's very frustrating because here we are well into the second quarter and really no information about where this is going.
All right.
And
Great.
$2 a gallon gas hurts it, so we want it to kind of stay level, right?
So, yeah, so again, it's part of a revenue MACA shortfall, and MACA is funded from the hazardous substance tax. The primary substance is petroleum. So again, the state has aggressive goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, part of which is reducing consumption of petroleum. So I mean, I think it's expected, but yeah, I'm not sure. Again, not a lot of information. Local airs and a lot of other environmental work was shifted to MACA in the there was around 2008, 2009, when the state was, having lots of budget issues. A lot of environmental work was moved from the state general fund to MACA because MACA was seen as a dedicated funding source. And again, it's an environmental related tax, so let's fund environmental related work. But now with those revenues decreasing, so.
All right.
So
Well, thanks for keeping your finger on the pulse. Okay, so that completes the second thing under new business, right?
Yes.
I guess
Yes, it
the
does.
one other topic I'd like to just kind of sneak in here for a little bit, call it good of the order, is just my misrecollection of how our bylaws set up, who is the chair of the finance committee. And Jim, maybe I'm leaning on your institutional knowledge as well here, but my recollection from before I was in the position of vice chair was that the vice chair was the finance committee's chair. But that's not how it reads in the bylaws, according to Jeff. And I just am wondering if we want to continue that practice. That's kind of just a question for conversation. If there's any reason not to continue it or to continue it, I don't know. Any thoughts?
Yeah, the bylaws give the chair appointment authority over the committee members for all the committees, that even ad hoc committees.
Right.
So, and I think we did that because Cynthia was the chair and the vice chair of finance and the vice chair and left at the same time. So we happened to have both vacant at the same time, and you were already on and expressing interest in leadership. So I think that's how we ended up here in my recollection. I don't know that it matters. I've never once made an appointment without talking to the board and doing it in a business meeting with board, check-in, right? And so I feel like it's an okay practice. It allows you to be a little more nimble with the committees. And I think if you had to have a meeting, you could create a committee in an emergency, but I don't know. That's probably pretty rare. So
I guess that makes sense. I have no reason to change any of that.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
I did wonder how the count of the committee is, because I'm working on, vacating the chair so we can secure a chair in December at the meeting. So you have leadership, but do you have enough members of this committee for a January meeting, or should I also appoint another committee member or an alternate at the December meeting?
Well, we have, so with Greg, with Randy, with Mike French, we'll have 3. So we would have 3, but so it's a matter of.
So Mike's already appointed this committee.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. I just forgot. Okay, good. Okay, cool. So then you can just do reappointments in the spring on the regular timeline for finance.
Which is February, so
February.
the bylaws do
Late winter.
specify
Okay.
that the finance committee is appointed at the February board meeting.
And that kind of
Okay.
kicks off the budget process.
Right.
Yep.
Right. at least for the board. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Thank you for that. Randy, do you have something to add?
I was just trying to figure out what the issue is. I don't, I'm not seeing an actual issue, that we would even have a problem with. So what am I missing?
Oh, I mean, there was no problem. I was just kind of wrapping my head around the succession planning, and Emily has expressed interest in being vice chair, and I had it just kind of tied into my head. I thought Cynthia as the vice chair was also so it's unwinding my cognitive
Now I
bias,
understand what you're
basically.
saying. Yeah, because I saw what Jim was saying. That's how it's always been.
Yeah, my mind.
Yeah, no, okay, so we're all good then. No issues.
I think in the long run, if you can have 3 different board members in leadership positions like that, it's better for the organization, right? Like,
Yep.
so having it consolidated in 2 people just means you have less board members that are engaged.
Totally.
But like Jim, I think it's extremely important that the chair be attending all of these. When possible, Jim attends all of them, even when he wasn't running, not
Yeah,
running.
I haven't been a voting member of this committee. Well, maybe I am this. I don't remember anyway, but
Yeah.
I've been an alternate for a while. So
Yeah,
I
Well,
think,
I don't
I
even
think for
know
the
that-
past year.
okay.
I don't even know where we've even had an issue where we've had to question whether you're a voting member. We have our differences that happen, but we always work our way through it. So I've never
It was just
questioned.
the
whether
3
you're a
of
voting
us
member.
last year, and then
Yeah.
Mike joined, so that's when Jim. Yeah. Okay. Great. I think it's great. Lovely. So my report will basically consist of the rosy first quarter fiscal report that Tyson prepared in his spare time. Including the fact that in the first quarter added $104,000 to fund balance, and even though we've done some of the larger projects such as the EV purchase and charger, we're still only at 28% of expenses versus the 25% one would expect. So things are going well, and we'll come back in January with more updates on the core state and federal grants, but it's not looking good, and the state grant we know is going to go down precipitously, and it's completely unknown about the federal core grant.
That's a good summary.
Okay. Great. Well, everyone gets a little bit of time back to their day, unless there's anything else for the good of the order. Okay.
Actually, let me just ask Emily, were you gonna come into the office for the board meeting, or will you be remote for that as well?
I will be in person for that one.
Okay, great. All right, but Jim, you're staying home today.
Yeah, I'm going to stay remote today.
Okay, sounds good. All right, we'll see you all in a little less than an hour.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks so much,
Thank
guys.
you.
We are adjourned.